Zexty felt his 3 hearts beating fast as the alarm sounds filled Kepler Station. The bright red warning lights flashed on every wall and ceiling. All around him, aliens from dozens of different worlds were running to their ships. Some had 4 legs, some had 6. Some flew with wings, others slithered on the floor, but they were all doing the same thing. They were all trying to escape. The Vorthan diplomat had worked at this trade station for 20 cycles. He had seen many emergencies. Before, pirates' attacks, solar storms, even meteor strikes. But nothing like this. Nothing that made every single species in the galaxy react the same way. The death mist was coming. Zexty checked his datapad again. The long-range sensors were clear. A massive cloud of poisonous gas was moving toward their system. They would reach Kepler Station in less than 6 hours. It gave them just enough time to evacuate if they hurried. He watched a group of crystalline beings load their trade goods into their ship with shaking hands. Even the proud Zephyrians were abandoning their expensive cargo. The mollusk traders were leaving behind containers worth millions of credits. When species that lived for profit abandoned their money, you knew the danger was real. The death mist had destroyed everything it touched for as long as anyone could remember. Ancient records from 1,000 different worlds all told the same story. When the gray-green cloud appeared in space, you ran. You ran as fast as your ships could carry you. Those who stayed behind were never seen again. Zexty had heard the stories since he was a young spawn. Entire colonies wiped out overnight. Space stations found empty and corroded. Planets turned into dead rocks where nothing could grow. Mist ate through metal like acid. It turned living flesh into dust. Even the air around it became poison that would kill you if you breathed it. Every species in the galaxy knew about the death mist. Every species feared it. Every species had the same response when their sensors detected it approaching. Immediate. Evacuation, no questions asked. No time to waste. But as Zexty hurried toward his own emergency shuttle, something caught his attention. In the human section of the station, the corridors were quiet. Too quiet. He stopped walking and looked around. Where were the humans? They had a small trade delegation here, maybe 30 people. Their leader was a female called Dr. Chen. She was always polite during the council meetings. Her species was new to galactic trade, only making contact 5 cycles ago. But they seemed smart enough. So where were they? Zexty changed direction and walked toward the human quarters. His escort, a young Vorthan named Kilrek, grabbed his arm with a tentacle. Sir, we need to leave now. The evacuation ships are almost full. Wait, Zexty said. Something is wrong. The human section was located in level 7 of the station. As they got closer, Zexty could hear something that made no sense. Voices. Human voices. And they were not screaming in panic. They were talking normally. Some of them were even laughing. Zexty pressed his face against the transparent wall that separated the human area from the main corridor. Inside, he could see humans moving around their quarters like nothing was happening. Few were sitting at tables, drinking from small cups. Others were working at computer screens. One human male was telling a story to a group while they all smiled. This cannot be right, Kilrek whispered. Do they not know? Zexty activated the communication panel next to the human section entrance. A moment later, Dr. Chen's face appeared. On the screen, she was a middle-aged female with short gray hair and calm brown eyes. She looked exactly like someone who was not worried about dying. Hello, Zexty, she said with a small smile. What can I do for you? Dr. Chen Zexty said, trying to keep his voice steady. You need to evacuate immediately. The death mist will reach this station in less than 6 hours. Dr. Chen nodded. Yes, we received the warning. Thank you for checking on us. Zexty waited for her to say more. When she did not, he felt confused. Dr. Chen, you need to leave. Now, the death mist will kill everyone who stays. We appreciate your concern, Dr. Chen replied. But we have decided to remain on the station. The words hit Zexty like a physical blow. You have decided to what? We are staying, Dr. Chen said simply. This is a valuable research opportunity. We've never had a chance to study the death mist up close. Before Kilrek made a choking sound. They want to study it? The death mist. Dr. Chen heard him through the speaker. Yes, that is correct. We have been hoping for an opportunity like this. Our scientists are very excited. Zextai felt his world turn upside down. Dr. Chen, I think you do not understand. The death mist is not something you study. It is something you run from. It kills everything it touches. So we have heard, Dr. Chen said. But our analysis suggests the danger may be overstated for our species. Overstated? Zextai's voice came out as a squeak. Dr. Chen, the death mist has destroyed entire civilizations. It has killed billions of beings across thousands of worlds. Dr. Chen looked thoughtful. Yes, but those were not humans. Before Zextai could respond, another alarm sounded. This one was different. It was the final evacuation warning. The last ships were preparing to leave. Sir Kilrick said urgently, "We must go now." Zextai looked at Dr. Chen one last time. The human female was still completely calm. Behind her, he could see other humans continuing their normal activities. One was even laughing at something on his computer screen. Dr. Chen, please reconsider. Come with us. You do not have to die today. We do not plan to die, Dr. Chen said. We plan to learn, and maybe make some new discoveries along the way. The communications screen went dark. Zextai stared at it for a long moment, then turned and ran toward the evacuation ships. As his shuttle pulled away from Kepler Station, he looked back through the window. The station grew smaller and smaller until it was just a dot of light in the darkness. In a few hours, that would be swallowed by the death mist, and somehow impossibly. 30 humans had chosen to stay inside it. Either they were the bravest beings he had ever met, or they were completely insane. As his ship jumped to hyperspace, Zextai realized he would probably never know which one was true. 3 hours after the last evacuation ship left Kepler Station, the death mist arrived. Zextai watched from the safety of the rescue fleet, floating in space, 10 light minutes away from the station. Around him, representatives from 40 different species crowded the observation deck of the command vessel. Everyone wanted to see what would happen to the humans. The mist looked like a giant storm cloud made of gray and green smoke. It rolled through space like a living thing, twisting and turning as it moved. Lightning flashed inside it, but not the normal kind. This lightning was purple and red and seemed to eat the darkness around it. Sensors showed the cloud as over 2,000 kilometers wide, announced Captain Vorthok, the Milithon officer in charge of the rescue fleet. His 4 eyes never left the viewing screen. Composition includes sulfuric acid, methane compounds, ammonia gas, and unknown organic particles. Zextai felt sick just hearing the list. Any one of those chemicals could kill most species in minutes. Together, they made a mixture that could dissolve a starship's hull. What about the microorganisms? Asked Dr. Pelax, a crystalline scientist. Her crystal body was shaking with fear. The sensors detected biological activity in the cloud. Captain Vorthok checked his instruments, confirmed. Millions of unknown life forms. They appear to be feeding on any organic matter they encounter. The watching aliens fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. The tiny creatures in the mist would eat any living thing they touched. They would start from the outside and work their way in, consuming flesh and bone until nothing remained. On the main screen, they watched the death mist surround Kepler Station. The massive trade post disappeared inside the gray-green cloud like a stone dropped into dirty water. Within minutes, the station was completely hidden from view. Communications are down, reported the communications officer. The mist is blocking all signals. Of course they are, whispered Kilrek, standing next to Zextai. The acid eats through the communication arrays first, then it moves inside. The next 6 hours, the rescue fleet waited in silence. Nobody spoke about what they expected to find when the mist moved on. They all knew. They had all heard the stories. When the death mist cleared, Kepler Station would be empty. The humans would be gone, just like every other group that had ever tried to survive the cloud. But something strange happened as they waited. The sensors began picking up signals from inside the mist, not distress calls or emergency beacons. Regular communications, radio chatter. And strangest of all, the signals sounded calm. "Sir," the communications officer said, his voice shaking, "I think you should hear this." Captain Vorthok nodded. Put it through the speakers." A human voice filled the observation deck. Dr. Chen, speaking in the same calm tone she had used during the evacuation warning. "Day 1 observation log," she was saying. "The mist reached our station at 14:30 station time. Initial readings show the cloud contains exactly what our models predicted. Sulfuric acid concentration is at 7%. Methane levels are within acceptable parameters. The microorganisms are fascinating. They appear to be similar to the extremophile bacteria we find near volcanic vents on Earth." Zextia's 3 hearts stopped beating for a moment. She was talking about the death mist like it was a science experiment. Another human voice joined the conversation. This one belonged to a male with a deep, cheerful tone. "Chen, you need to see this. The atmospheric processor is working perfectly. We are getting clean air with no problems. And the external sensors show the station hall is completely undamaged." "Excellent, Rodriguez," Dr. Chen replied. "Any word from the exterior work team?" "They finished installing the sample collectors an hour ago. Jackson says the mist is actually quite pleasant to work in once you get used to it. The visibility is better than he expected." The observation deck erupted in shocked voices. Aliens began talking over each other in dozens of different languages. "Did he say exterior work team?" "They are working outside the station. In the death mist? This is impossible." Captain Vorthok raised one of his 4 hands for silence. "Communications. Are you certain these signals are coming from inside the mist?" The officer checked his instruments 3 times before answering. "Confirmed, sir. The signals are definitely originating from Kepler Station." Dr. Pelak stepped forward, her crystal body flashing with confused colors. "Captain, this does not make sense. Death mist should have killed them by now. Even if they were in sealed shelters, the acid would have eaten through the walls." "Maybe their technology is more advanced than we thought," suggested Ambassador KTCs, a floating jellyfish-like being from the outer rings. But Zextai was remembering his conversation with Dr. Chen. Her words echoed in his memory. "Our analysis suggests the danger may be overstated for our species." What did she meant by that? Over the next 2 days, the signals from inside the mist continued. The humans were not just surviving, they were working. Rescue fleet listened in amazement as the humans discussed their research, complained about the quality of their meals, and even told jokes. On the 3rd day, something unprecedented happened. A human voice came over the emergency frequency, the channel reserved for distress calls. "This is Dr. Chen aboard Kepler Station," she said. "We have a request for the rescue fleet." Captain Vorthok immediately responded. "Dr. Chen, this is Captain Vorthok. Are you in need of emergency evacuation?" "Well, thank you, Captain. We are doing quite well. However, we have run low on coffee. Would it be possible to arrange a supply drop? We expect to be here for several more weeks, and our research team is becoming difficult to work with without proper coffee." The observation deck fell completely silent. Zextai was sure he had misheard. But then Dr. Chen continued. "Also, if anyone has spare atmospheric analyzers, we could use a few more. The ones we brought are working overtime. This mist is turning out to be far more interesting than we expected." Captain Vorthok looked around the observation deck like he was hoping someone would explain what was happening. When no one spoke, he keyed his microphone again. "Dr. Chen, are you saying you want to stay in the death mist longer?" "That is correct, Captain. We are making discoveries that will change how the galaxy understands this phenomenon. We just need better coffee to keep going." Ambassador K-Tex floated closer to the communications station. "Dr. Chen, how are you surviving in there?" "The death mist kills everything it touches." Dr. Chen's voice carried a tone of surprise. "Kills everything?" "Oh, I think there has been a misunderstanding. The mist is certainly dangerous if you are not prepared for it. But with basic safety equipment, it is quite manageable. Rather like working in a chemical plant back on Earth." "A chemical plant?" Dr. Pellix's crystal body was flashing rapid purple, the color of extreme confusion. You compare the death mist to a factory? Yes, Dr. Chen said. The atmospheric composition is challenging, but nothing our equipment cannot handle. The acid concentration is actually lower than some natural environments on our homeworld. And the microorganisms are quite helpful once you learn to work with them. Steve felt the universe tilt around him. Everything he thought he knew about the death mist was wrong. Everything every species in the galaxy thought they knew was wrong. The humans were not just surviving the most feared phenomenon in space. They were treating it like a minor inconvenience, and they wanted coffee delivered. The supply drop mission was the strangest assignment Captain Vorthok had ever received in 30 years of military service. His ship carried 2 tons of human coffee, 6 atmospheric analyzers, and a crew of scientists from 12 different species who insisted on coming along to see the impossible for themselves. The death mist still surrounded Kepler Station like a living wall of poison. As their ship approached the edge of the cloud, every alien on board felt their survival instincts screaming at them to turn around and flee. But the humans had provided them with detailed instructions on how to safely enter the mist. Maintain standard shields, Dr. Chen had told them over the radio. The mist will not damage your hull if you keep your atmospheric integrity intact. Think of it like flying through a thick fog, just one that happens to be acidic. Just one that happens to be acidic. Captain Vorthok shook his head. Only humans would describe the death mist as fog with a minor chemical problem. As they entered the cloud, the main view screen showed a world of swirling gray and green. Lightning flashed around them, but their shields held without any strain. The ship's sensors worked normally. Even the communication systems functioned perfectly. "This is impossible," whispered Dr. Pellix, watching her instruments. "My people have lost entire fleets to this mist. Are we flying through it like it is normal space?" Zextai was asking himself the same question. From his position at the science station, he could see the mist's composition in detail. Sulfuric acid, methane, ammonia, and millions of aggressive microorganisms. It should have been eating through their ship's hull. Instead, his sensors showed no damage at all. "Contact ahead," announced the navigation officer. "Kepler Station is visible." The station appeared through the mist like a ghost ship. But instead of the corroded wreck they expected to find, Kepler Station looked completely normal. The hull was undamaged. The lights were on, and attached to the outside of the station were dozens of strange new devices that had not been there before. "Those are sample collectors," Dr. Chen explained over the radio as their ship docked. "We have been gathering specimens from the mist for analysis. The results are quite remarkable." When the airlock opened, the first thing that struck the visiting aliens was how normal everything looked. The station corridors were clean and well lit. The air smelled fresh. Human crew members walked around in regular uniforms, not environmental suits. Dr. Chen met them at the docking bay. She wore simple work clothes and carried a cup of what Zextai assumed was coffee. Looked exactly like someone who had been doing routine research, not someone who had spent 5 days inside the galaxy's most dangerous phenomenon. "Welcome to our little research station," she said with a smile. "I hope the trip through the mist was not too uncomfortable." Ambassador Kachex floated forward, his jellyfish body pulsing with nervous energy. "Dr. Chen, how are you alive?
How is
any of this possible?" Dr. Chen gestured for them to follow her. "I think it will be easier to show you than to explain. Our biology team has made some fascinating discoveries." She led them through the station to what used to be a storage bay. The humans had converted it into a laboratory filled with equipment Zextai did not recognize. Charts and graphs covered the walls. Sample containers lined the shelves. And in the center of the room, a group of humans in light protective gear were working with containers of the death mist itself. "The key," Dr. Chen said, "is understanding what the mist actually is versus what everyone thinks it is." She walked to a large display screen showing the mist's chemical composition. The mist contains sulfuric acid, but the concentration is only 7%. On Earth, we have natural hot springs with higher acid levels. Our people swim in them for recreation. Dr. Pellix's crystal body flashed bright orange. "You swim in acid? Dilute acid?" Dr. Chen corrected. "The difference is important." The mist also contains methane and ammonia. These are common industrial chemicals on Earth. We use them to make fertilizer and fuel. They are dangerous if you are not careful, but they are hardly unknown to us. She moved to another display. The microorganisms are the most interesting part. Everyone assumes they are deadly parasites that eat living tissue. But our tests show they are actually beneficial bacteria, very similar to the ones that live in human digestive systems. A human scientist named Dr. Rodriguez joined the conversation. The organisms in the mist help break down complex organic compounds into simpler, usable forms. When we first detected them, we thought they might be harmful. But after testing, we found they actually improve human health when properly introduced to our systems. Zextai felt his world turning upside down again. You were saying the death mist is good for humans? Good might be too strong a word, Dr. Chen said. But it is certainly not the universal killer that everyone believes it to be. At least not for us. Dr. Rodriguez activated another display showing molecular structures. The reason is evolution. Earth is what you might call a death world. Planet has acid rain, poisonous gases, extreme temperatures, and aggressive bacteria. Humans evolved to survive in conditions that would kill most galactic species instantly. Our ancestors lived through ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and atmospheric changes that wiped out countless other species. Dr. Chen added, "What looks like certain death to you looks like a challenging but manageable environment to us." She led them to a window that looked out into the mist. Through the swirling clouds, they could see humans in simple spacesuits working on the stations. Exterior, they moved casually, like maintenance workers fixing a problem, not like people surrounded by deadly poison. The suits they are wearing are standard environmental gear, Dr. Chen explained. The same type we use for any spacewalk. The mist requires no special protection beyond what we already carry for normal space operations. Ambassador KT's pressed against the window. But the stories, the legends, entire civilizations destroyed by the death mist. Dr. Chen nodded seriously. Those stories are probably true. The mist would be deadly to most species. The acid would eat through silicon-based life forms like the crystallines. The methane would poison carbon-based species that did not evolve in similar conditions. The bacteria would attack immune systems that had never encountered anything like them. But humans, Dr. Rodriguez continued, evolved on a planet where all of these dangers were normal parts of life. Our bodies learned to handle acid, process methane safely, and work with aggressive bacteria. What kills you makes us stronger. Dr. Pelax was examining one of the sample containers. What will you do with all this material you have collected? Chun's eyes lit up with excitement. That is the truly interesting part. The mist is not just harmless to humans. It is useful. The organic compounds can be processed into extremely efficient fuel. The bacteria can be used to create medicines and improve food production. The acid, when properly refined, makes an excellent industrial solvent. We are essentially sitting inside a cloud of valuable resources that nobody else in the galaxy can safely harvest, Dr. Rodriguez added. It is like finding a gold mine that only humans can enter. As the tour continued, Zextai began to understand the full magnitude of what he was witnessing. The death mist had terrorized the galaxy for thousands of years. Entire civilizations had built their expansion plans around avoiding it. Trade routes detoured around systems where the mist had been detected. Worlds had been abandoned rather than risk contact with it, but to humans, it was just another environment to adapt to and exploit near the end of their visit. Dr. Chen brought them to the station's observation lounge. Through the large windows, they could see the mist swirling around them in patterns that almost looked like ocean currents. The galaxy sees this as a force of destruction, Dr. Chen said, sipping her coffee. We see it as an opportunity. Where you see certain death, we see resources, research, and profit. She turned to face the group of alien visitors. That is the difference between running from your problems and learning to live with them. Humans have been doing the second option for so long that we have forgotten how to do the first. As their ship prepared to leave Kepler Station, Zextai looked back at the humans continuing their work in the death mist. They had taken the galaxy's greatest fear and turned it into a research project. It found profit in poison and opportunity. In death, he was beginning to understand that humans were going to change everything. 6 months after the first death mist encounter, the news had spread across the entire galaxy. Every species, every world, every space station was talking about the same impossible story. The humans had not only survived the death mist, they had built a business around it. Single quotes. Ty stood in the main conference room of the Galactic Trade Council, watching the holographic display that showed the latest reports from human operations. The numbers were staggering. In just half a year, humans had established 17 permanent research stations inside death mist clouds. They had mapped over 40 different mist formations across 12 star systems, and they were making more money than some entire planetary economies. The humans have revolutionized galactic commerce, announced Trade Minister Vextel, a tall, insect-like being from the core worlds. Their refined mist fuel is 30% more efficient than our best energy sources. Their organic fertilizers have increased agricultural output on 17 worlds. And their medical compounds are curing diseases we thought were impossible to treat. Around the conference table, representatives from dozens of species nodded in agreement. Even the proudest and most traditional civilizations had been forced to admit that the humans had achieved something extraordinary. Ambassador KTX floated near the display, his jellyfish body glowing with excitement. Economic impact extends beyond direct sales. Trade routes that were previously impossible due to mist presence are now being established. The humans are clearing paths through mist barriers that have existed for thousands of years. Dr. Pellax, representing the crystalline collective, added her own observations. From a scientific perspective, human research has answered questions about the death mist that our species have wondered about for generations. They have proven that the mist is not supernatural or mystical. It is simply a natural phenomenon that requires specific biological adaptations to survive. But not everyone was celebrating the human success. Captain Morthex of the Rigel Defense Force stood up from his seat, his metal exoskeleton gleaming under the conference room lights. "While we praise their achievements," he said in his mechanical voice, "we must also consider the implications. For millennia, the death mist has been a natural barrier that prevented expansion into certain regions of space. Some of those regions were left empty for good reasons." The room fell quiet. Captain Morthex activated his own holographic display, showing a map of known space with red zones marking areas that had been avoided due to mist presence. "The forbidden sectors, the lost systems, the dark nebula regions," he continued. "These areas were quarantined not just because of the mist, but because of what lived beyond it. There are species and civilizations in those regions that have been isolated for thousands of years. Some of them were isolated because they were dangerous." Trade Minister Vextel Santana twitched nervously. "Are you suggesting the humans are opening pathways to hostile territories?" "I am suggesting," Captain Morthex replied, "that we do not know what lies beyond barriers that have existed since before recorded history. The humans are removing those barriers without understanding what they might be unleashing." Before anyone could respond, the conference room's communication system activated. The face of Dr. Chen appeared on the main screen, broadcasting from her flagship research vessel deep inside the Vortex Nebula's death mist formation. "Greetings from the Human Deep Space Research Division," she said with her usual calm smile. "We apologize for interrupting your meeting, but we have some news that the Council should hear immediately." Zextai leaned forward in his chair. In the months since the first encounter, Dr. Chen had become something of a celebrity across the galaxy. Her regular reports from inside various death mist formations were broadcast to billions of beings who watched in amazement as humans worked in environments that would kill them instantly. "We have made contact with a previously unknown civilization," Dr. Chen announced. The conference room erupted in shocked voices. Captain Morthex's metal face showed no expression, but his red optical sensors grew brighter. Dr. Chen continued speaking over the noise. 3 days ago, while exploring the deep regions of the Vortex Nebula mist, our survey team encountered artificial structures. After careful investigation, we made peaceful contact with a species that calls themselves the Mistwalkers. She activated her own display, showing images of tall, graceful beings that seemed to be made of living crystal and metal. They moved through the death mist without any protective equipment, their bodies glowing with internal light. The Mistwalkers have lived inside death mist formations for over 10,000 years, Dr. Chen explained. They evolved to not just survive in the mist, but to thrive in it. They use the mist's energy to power their cities and feed their population. To them, the mist is not death. It is life itself. Ambassador KTE-CETs floated closer to the screen. Dr. Chen, are they hostile? Not at all, Dr. Chen replied. They are curious about us, just as we are curious about them. They have been watching. Galactic civilization from inside the mist, barriers for millennia. But they could never make contact because no other species could survive in their environment. The implications hit Zextai like a physical blow. Entire civilization had been isolated from the galaxy simply because no one else could breathe their air. Dr. Chen's image was replaced by that of a Mistwalker leader, a being of incredible beauty whose crystalline body pulsed with colors that had no names. When it spoke, its voice was like music played through wind chimes. Greetings, people of the outer spaces, the Mistwalker said through a translation device. We have waited long ages to speak with those who live beyond the protective barriers. We are grateful to the humans for making this meeting possible. Conference room was completely silent. Even Captain Morthek seemed stunned by what he was seeing. We offer friendship to all who desire it, the Mistwalker continued. Our knowledge of mist science is ancient and deep. We can teach you things about energy and biology that your scientists have never imagined. In return, we hope to learn about the worlds beyond the mist, the places where solid matter exists without the flowing energies we know. Dr. Chun's face returned to the screen. The Mistwalkers have technology that makes our best equipment look primitive. They can manipulate the mist itself, controlling its movement and composition. They have offered to teach us their methods in exchange for cultural and scientific exchange. Trade Minister Vextel was the first to find his voice. Dr. Chen, what does this mean for galactic civilization? It means, Dr. Chen said, that we have been living in only half of the universe. The death mist formations are not empty barriers. Between star systems, they are inhabited worlds with their own civilizations, their own cultures, and their own knowledge. By learning to survive in the mist, humans have opened the door to an entirely new dimension of galactic society. Over the following hours, the Galactic Trade Council listened as Dr. Chen and the Mistwalker leader described technologies and possibilities that seemed like magic. Cities that floated in clouds of controlled mist, energy systems that drew power directly from chemical reactions in the atmosphere, medical techniques that used living bacteria to repair damage at the cellular level. But perhaps the most important revelation came at the end of the transmission. The Mistwalker leader revealed that there were dozens of other species living in death mist formations throughout the galaxy, entire civilizations that had evolved in environments too dangerous for normal galactic contact. The humans, the Mistwalker said, are the bridge between our two halves of existence. They can survive in both environments. They can translate between our different ways of life. Through them, the galaxy can finally become whole. As the transmission ended, Zextai looked around the conference room at the faces of beings from dozens of different worlds. All of them were processing the same overwhelming realization. The galaxy was twice as large as they had thought. Half of it had been hidden behind barriers of poison and death. In humanity, the youngest species in galactic civilization, had become the key to unlocking secrets that were older than recorded history. The humans had not just survived the death mist, they had discovered that it was home to an entire hidden half of the universe, and they were inviting everyone else to come and meet their new neighbors. 1 year after the first death mist encounter, the Galactic Council held its most important meeting in recorded history. The Grand Assembly Hall on Nexus Prime was packed with representatives from every known species, plus several new ones that no one had known existed before the humans opened the mist barriers. Zexti sat in his designated seat as the newly appointed ambassador for human relations. a position that had been created just for him. In the months since first meeting Dr. Chen, he'd become the galaxy's leading expert on human behavior and their unique approach to solving impossible problems. At the center of the hall, a massive holographic display showed the current state of galactic civilization. The map looked completely different from the one they had used just 2 years ago, where there had once been empty spaces marked with warnings about death mist. There were now trade routes, research stations, and diplomatic outposts. The galaxy had doubled in size practically overnight. Supreme Chancellor Kethmara, the ancient leader of the Galactic Council, rose from her floating platform. Her crystalline body was over 3,000 years old, and she had seen the rise and fall of dozens of civilizations. But even she seemed amazed by what was happening. "We gathered today," she announced in her voice that sounded like singing crystal, "to formally recognize the greatest change in galactic history. The barriers that have divided our universe for millions of years have been removed, and we owe this transformation to our newest members." The hall turned its attention to the human delegation. Dr. Chen sat at their head, wearing the same simple clothes she had worn during the first crisis. Next to her sat representatives from 17 different Mistwalker civilizations, their bodies glowing with soft light as they breathed the specially mixed atmosphere that allowed them to survive outside their mist homes. "The humans," Chancellor Kethmara continued, "have proven that what we call impossible is often simply untried. They have shown us that the deadliest environments in our galaxy can become the richest sources of knowledge and friendship." Captain Morthex, who had initially worried about the dangers of opening the mist barriers, stood to address the assembly. His mechanical voice carried a tone that Zextay had never heard before. "Respect. I must admit that my fears were both right and wrong," the military commander said. "The humans did unleash forces that had been contained for thousands of years. But those forces were not hostile armies or dangerous weapons. They were entire civilizations that had been waiting to share their wisdom with the galaxy." He activated a display showing the current military situation across known space. Crime rates have dropped to the lowest levels in recorded history. The Mistwalker peacekeeping technologies have made war practically impossible. Their ability to neutralize weapon systems through atmospheric manipulation has forced us all to find peaceful solutions to our conflicts. Trade Minister Vextel presented the economic reports next. The numbers were so large that some species could not even comprehend them. "Human-led mist operations have generated more wealth in 1 year than the previous century of traditional trade," he announced. "But more importantly, they have shared this wealth freely with their partners. Poverty has been eliminated on 47 worlds through the distribution of mist-derived medicines and agricultural improvements." Dr. Pellax floated forward to give the scientific report. Her crystal body was flashing bright colors of excitement. "The knowledge exchange between mist civilizations and surface civilizations has advanced our understanding of physics, biology, and chemistry by thousands of years," she said. "Diseases that killed millions are now as easily cured. Energy problems that seemed impossible to solve have been resolved with mist-based technologies. We are living in a golden age of discovery." But the most important presentation came from Dr. Chen herself. She stood and walked to the center of the hall, looking around at the hundreds of different beings who had gathered to witness this historic moment. "When we first encountered the death mist," she said, "we did not see it as an enemy to be defeated or a barrier to be avoided. We saw it as a puzzle to be solved. That is the human way. Where others see endings, we see beginnings," she gestured. "To the Mistwalker representatives, our new friends have taught us that there are no true barriers in the universe, only challenges that require different approaches. What kills one species might give life to another. What seems impossible to one civilization might be routine to another." A young Mistwalker named Leandros rose from his seat. His voice was like music when he spoke through the translation device. "The surface dwellers taught us that there are worlds beyond the mist, where beings live under the light of stars," he said. "We taught them that there are ways to control the very chemistry of space itself. Together, we have learned that the universe is far more wonderful than either of us imagined alone." Chancellor Kethmara called for the formal vote. The question was simple but profound. Should humanity be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all the rights and responsibilities that came with it? The vote was unanimous. Every species, from the oldest civilizations to the newest discoveries, agreed that humanity had earned their place not through conquest or superior technology, but through their unique ability to find opportunity in the face of universal fear. As the celebration began, Zextai found himself standing next to Dr. Chen on one of the observation decks overlooking the Nexus Prime capital city. Below them, beings from dozens of different worlds mingled together in ways that had been impossible just 1 year ago. "Dr. Chen," he said, "I have a question that has been bothering me since our first meeting." She smiled and sipped from her ever-present cup of coffee. "What is that, Zexti?" "When you first told me that your people wanted to study the death mist, you seemed so confident that you would survive. How did you know? How could you be certain that your species would succeed where everyone else had failed?" Dr. Chen was quiet. For a moment, watching a group of human children playing with young mistwalkers in the plaza below. The children were laughing as the alien beings created small, harmless mist formations for them to run through. "We did not know," she said finally. "We could not be certain. But that is the most important thing about being human, Zexti. We are not brave because we do not feel fear. We are brave because we refuse to let fear make our decisions for us." She pointed to the children playing below. "Every human child learns the same lesson. When you fall down, you get back up. When something seems impossible, you try anyway. When everyone tells you that something cannot be done, you ask yourself, has anyone like me ever tried to do it before? And if the answer is no," Zextai asked. Dr. Chen grinned, and for a moment, Zextai could see the same expression that the humans had worn when they decided to stay behind and face the death mist. "If the answer is no," she said, "then you get to find out what happens when someone like you tries." Above them, the stars shone down on a galaxy that was twice as large as it had been 1 year ago. In the distance, human ships were already heading toward new challenges. New impossible barriers that everyone said could not be crossed. And throughout the galaxy, other species were beginning to ask themselves a new question. Not how can we avoid this problem, but how can we solve it? It was, Zexti realized, a very human way of thinking, and it was spreading